As Dr. Eich introduced, I am Ben Eich. I am going to be graduating next year. My presentation is over the effect of attire on perception. I measured a couple different things. Firstly, past research indicated that there was self-perception of employees and that it differed across different attires, whether formal, casual, semi-formal. It impacted their self-perception of friendliness, competency, and creativity in the context of the work. There was also the perception of others, and it measured those three same things. But what I really had a problem with these is they lacked multiple examples of the clothing and the models, and they just stuck to one, such as this right here. The same guy represented, those would be examples of the attire a lawyer would wear. Some of them are highly unprofessional. And actually, once it seemed to pass this threshold here, these two were perceived about the same. And they also did one with a doctor, but as you can see, it's the same guy. And he's wearing all the same attire, pretty much. So, that's why I went with multiple examples. But I also wanted to examine something else, that your attire changed people's perception of the race of an individual. Right here you can see these are all the same skin color. All they changed was the attire. This was a business suit. This was a janitor outfit. And that study revealed that racially ambiguous individuals wearing business attire were perceived as more white, and racially ambiguous people wearing janitor attire were perceived as more black. So that made me think to myself, maybe I want to measure a little bit of that too. But hypothesis one is that models in casual attire were perceived as more likable than models in formal attire. Hypothesis two is that black models in formal attire were perceived differently than white models in formal attire. So what I did is I had participants take a survey where they rated 40 models based on likability. There were 10 models that were white and were formal attire. There were 10 models that were black and were formal attire. There were 10 models that were white and were casual attire, and there were 10 models that were black and were casual attire. I did not necessarily go the stereotypical janitor outfit because I didn't necessarily want to measure that. I just wanted to measure casual versus formal instead of what the article called high class versus low class. All right, back all the way over here. So on to the results. I did a repeated measures ANOVA to compare all the different categories, and then I ran t-tests to determine the formal versus casual relationship and the relationship between the white models and the black models. So this is the scale of likability. A 1 was a very unlikable fellow. A 6 was as likable as you can be. So as you can see, formal attire scored pretty high, 4.64, and casual attire actually scored a 4.24 with a probability of 0.01. Significant, but also the exact opposite of what I predicted. We'll get into that later. My second measure was whether they were white or black models. And again, same scale. White models had a perception of 4.34, pretty high, but black models actually had a perception of 4.54, and that had a P of 0.044, significant, and different, so that was actually predicted. So overall, your white formal models had a friendliness or likability of 4.45. Your black formal models had a friendliness of 4.83. Your white casual had 4.24, and your black casual had 4.25. I was interested that those had almost no difference. However, here, actually 0.002 probability and incredibly significant. Versus right here, it had a 96.5% chance of happening naturally. No significance at all. So on to the results. Formal attire is more likable than casual attire. I did not know this until I had 3 participants participate yesterday, and they made it significant, so I did not have time to do any research on why that might be. I apologize, but time constraints. Black models are more likable than white models, and black models in formal attire are much more likable than white models in formal attire. So what about the hypotheses? Hypothesis 1, the opposite expectation occurred and was significant. Again, I haven't had time to research because it wasn't significant until yesterday. Hypothesis 2 was significantly supported. So I did some research and actually came upon this great article the other day by Cooley, Brown, Iannuzzi, and Bordeaux. It was published in February 2019, but it focused on how social welfare programs were received by, it studied white people's attitudes towards social welfare programs. So as you can see, whites became less supportive of majority black social programs overall than white programs, unless they showed that recipients that participated in the program succeeded and left the program. Whereas supportive white majority programs that benefited white people the most, there was no significant change at all, even if it showed that people stayed on the program or that they succeeded and moved on from the program. So I use this along with the previously mentioned article by Freeman that people are more supportive when stereotypes are defied. I'm using that article to determine that the stereotypes that formal attire is more associated with white people. So I came up with that white, this is the article, not bad. White individuals stereotype black individuals as wearing low-class attire, and white people as wearing high-class attire. So the black models in formal attire defied that stereotype set here, and would be received as more likable than their counterparts due to that. The future implications could be focusing on more the cause of stereotyping, because now we have proof, and from previous articles, that people are more receptive to those who defy stereotypes, but we still don't know necessarily like the cause of that, so more investigation into that. There's also the practical application, because models, no matter the race, were perceived as more friendly than casually attired models when they were, or formally attired models were perceived as more friendly than casually modeled attires. Also, this could possibly be used to fight stereotypes, because, certainly, the results of this study are not necessarily true. I'm not a businessman, I never wear suits, and most janitors, most black people are not janitors. So this could be used to help fight stereotypes and also provide future insight on it. Any questions or comments?
Are the majority of your participants white then?
17 out of 25 were white. However, I actually did get a decent measure of others as well. Yes?
How do you think this would change at all if you were studying women instead of men?
I think it would be incredibly different. I can't comment on how, because that would have required a lot more, and I could only fit this in right now into the men category, but it would be very interesting to see how that interacts as well.
I could follow up on that. Some of you might remember an article that we read in Social Psychology. In fact, are you thinking of it yet? Yes. No, it's all right. I'll just think. I don't know if that pressure on you. Where women, in fact, were disadvantaged in the job situation if they looked too feminine. So they were actually, once again, if they just used for feminine stereotypes, they had an advantage in the job situation.
I think I remember women that were perceived as less attractive were actually
less feminine.
Less feminine. Any other questions?
Did you consider perhaps hair and face white? I have a tendency to look kind of unkept. I'm more attentive to detail than I perceive.
I did. I did not have time to measure whether they were equally attractive, which is why I did 10 of each category to try and counter that. Because if you had everybody at a 3 and then you had one person at 6, it would raise the average from 3 to 3.1. It wouldn't necessarily significantly impact it. As you can see, I put it in profile with just below the elbow and their head centered at the top center of the frame, the photo. Their facial expressions are very slightly different. But like I said, I tried to do 10 of each to discredit any of that chance. Any other?
We all just think that black guy in the suit is just whatever.
Yes. We're the winners.
You look very confident. That is a great looking suit too. I'm telling you.
All right, any other questions or comments on the models? All right.
It kind of looks like Blake Griffin to me a little bit, if you know who that is.
That guy on the left is a famous soccer
He
player.
looks untrustworthy.
On the bottom.
Just
He does.
He plays for the
like I
Seattle
don't trust what he's
Sounders.
thinking.
I found these on clothing article websites.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's Oba.
All right.